Hello, everybody. Welcome to Something to Talk About Live. My name is Liz Owen. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Director of Communications here at PFLAG National, and I'm so glad you're all with us for this, which is our last Something to Talk About Live for 2020. And we're going to end it. Big, but we're not going to end it without my friend and colleague, Jean Marie Nevada.
Hello, Liz. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. What people don't realize is how hard you make me laugh before this starts. And it's a miracle that I'm not giggling as the show starts every week.
Well, I did not fulfill my mission of having you join us hysterically laughing, but in 2021, that's my goal.
Running eyeliner. I'll see you later, Liz. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Something to Talk About Live. My name is Jean Marie Nevada, and I'm Director of Learning and Inclusion at PFLAG National. And if you don't know about PFLAG, you should visit pflag.org to learn more about us. So every single Thursday, we get together and we talk about something. We talk about a current news article, something that's going on in the world, and we always bring in a few friends to have the conversation. So first, if you want to join us and you would like to read this week's article, you should go to straightforequality.org/discussion series, and you can pick up the article and the questions that we are using today. But to get into today's conversation, I would like to bring in our two guests, and I am so excited because I don't always get to have the author of the article that we're working on, and this week that gets to be the case. So I would like to bring in our guests for the week. First, Rahel Silverman from the PFLAG National staff. Hello, Rahel.
Hi, so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you back again. This is, I think, your third time, right?
Yeah, well, one time was me and my guinea pig, so
that was
seconds, but it still counts.
I know, I'm kind of missing the guinea pig, but we still love you too.
He's in the other room because he was screaming a little bit.
And I'm also going to bring in a former PFLAG board president, Rabbi David Horowitz.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hey, Rabbi Horowitz, how's it going?
I have no major complaints and very few minor ones.
What a Jewish way to say an introduction.
Well, I am so happy to have you both here. And actually, the article that we are using this week is one that Rakhel actually wrote, and it appeared in Alma, and it was why I came out to my family during the high holidays. And it was kind of an amazing article about disclosing to your dad about your identity and trying to navigate this faith conversation. So I really want to get into the discussion because I think it did such a good job. And I was so appreciative of you pointing out the article to me, of getting to I was struggling and you were like, I have this, and I thought it was just perfect. Of having this conversation about the intersection of identity in terms of sexual orientation and gender identity and religion. And I think that there are so many things that people get right about this, so many things that people misunderstand. So I thought we could start with the first question that I have out here. And maybe Rahel, we could start with you and then go on to the rabbi. So, your article really talked about traditions and religious practices to kind of frame your coming out and disclosure conversation. So what do you feel like we can learn from Judaism about supporting LGBTQ loved ones after they come out or disclose about identity?
So what really helped me a lot in my journey that I talk about a bit in the article is, for context, my dad grew up a little homophobic and transphobic. He has grown a lot. I got him a PFLAG dad shirt for his birthday last month. So things are great there. But coming out to him was really difficult because I didn't know how he was going to react. And around the high holidays and other times during the year, there's a Jewish practice called Teshuva, which means turning. It's referring to reorienting your soul, going inwards towards yourself and turning over a new leaf, really. And not just, it's a part of the process of atonement. And you don't just apologize, you also commit to doing better and actually change yourself and just really committing to change, that just saying sorry isn't enough. So that really inspired me a lot and helped me in the journey with coming out to my dad, because I think that when someone discloses to you, you shouldn't just say you accept them or just apologize for maybe saying ignorant things in the past, but really walking the walk and committing yourself to learning and growing and taking action and demonstrating your support.
I love that. And I loved in your article learning about the concept, which is not something that I knew about. And I thought it was such an interesting way of looking at what this dynamic's like. So Rabbi, talk to us. What can we learn from Judaism about supporting people?
Well, I think we can learn a great deal. I think that especially in most of the movements in Judaism today, there has been literally an outreach to the LGBTQ plus community. I want to talk about my coming out, because parents come out as well as their children come out. And after Wendy came out to me, and I didn't take it so well, the first place I was able to say, my name's David and my daughter's a lesbian, was in a PFLAG meeting at PFLAG Akron. And after that, it became easier, and slowly and then more rapidly, I came out to my congregation. I was afraid of the reaction. Let me share with you one specific reaction. When I came out soon after, my calendar was filled with appointments. And there were people, over 200 families out of 600, who came to talk to me about their gay children, or their gay siblings, or their gay parents, or their gay spouses in some cases. And it completely transformed the congregation. So I think this concept of Teshuva is truly there. And as a group, we can do Teshuva. As a group, we can change our ways. I wasn't homophobic before. I thought I was perfectly fine with the gay community. I had served on the AIDS committee of the movement. I was into my gay colleagues in terms of conversation with them. But when my daughter came out, it was different. And that's why PFLAG, I think, will always be needed. When my daughter came out, it was different. And I was truly afraid of my future with the congregation. So, yeah, that's a little bit of my coming out story, and the idea that not only an individual does Teshuva, but now in terms of the Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, renewal movements in Judaism, we've all done Teshuva, and we've all changed our ways, and that's a very positive step toward the future.
And I think that is one of the really interesting pieces of this conversation, because there has been a lot written across the board when it comes to religion and identity about how, in fact, there isn't a lot of support, and that the place where most people's minds go to, and it doesn't matter which religious tradition you're looking at, often is, in fact, conflict, that there is, in fact, going to inherently be a conflict. And there's certainly reasons in our religious texts that happens, but some of it is also sort of socially constructed about our assumptions about each other and who is not supportive. And I think that in Jewish communities, there are a lot of stereotypes sort of about what support looks like, if you're getting support or if you're not getting support, sort of assumptions about everybody's very liberal or everybody's very, very conservative. So I'd love to hear from both of you, and whoever wants to jump in first, I would love to hear this. What sort of changes are you seeing in Jewish communities? And Rabbi, you were just mentioning that some of that has happened. But what do these changes look like? Are you seeing a lot of progress? Are there still areas that you feel there's work to be done? What does this look like?
Let me jump in here. I'm going to go in a three-step process. In 1990, right after my daughter came out, the Central Conference of American Rabbis were voting on whether or not to support the ordination of gay and lesbian rabbis. Bisexual, transgender, Q was not even in the alphabet soup in those days. It passed. It passed convincingly, but not without a great deal of argument. And I would suggest that at that point, we became accepting. We were tolerant before, there were resolutions supporting equal rights in employment, but we didn't apply it to ourselves. So it was, okay, we're tolerant of other people supporting the gay community, but not in our congregations and not in our organization. So in 1990, I think we became accepting. We are going to accept our gay colleagues into our group. And in 2000, the question was gay marriage. And at that point, it was a bitter debate. And I got to the convention and found out that they had changed the wording from marriage to commitment ceremonies, which made me incredibly unhappy. So I started a movement to try to change it on the floor. And one of my colleagues, one of the authors of the entire resolution, came to me and said, you're right and you'd win. But if we keep the wording as it is, then it's going to get near unanimity in terms of passage. So I swallowed hard, and it passed overwhelmingly. I think of the group of maybe 600 rabbis there, maybe there were 3 or 4 negative votes. And then she said to me quite correctly, and Time magazine next week is going to say the reform movement approves of gay marriage anyhow, which is exactly what happened. That's now over, and it's been over for a long time. So we went from tolerance to acceptance to celebration. Now we are able to celebrate our brothers and sisters and children and spouses and whatever else it may be within the LGBTQ plus community. And I think that's where we've gotten to. And I think it's very comfortable at that point. We've had transgender teachers in our religious school. We've had gay teachers. My children went to a Jewish day school, a very liberal Jewish day school, which had a transgender music teacher, still does. So yeah, I'm comfortable with, at this point, where we've gotten.
And Rahel, what your experience has been, you lived a very different life, you're different generation, different geography, different life experience. What does it look like for you, and what are you seeing? Because I think there's so many different experiences that we can draw from, and that's what makes this really interesting.
I think first I'm going to start with the stereotypes and then go into, because I think that was the part that it was funny when Jean-Marie when you sent me the questions, I was like, what are you talking about? And then after I thought about it, that was the question I was most excited to talk about.
Please.
So thank you for bringing that up. So I think there's 2 big stereotypes about being queer and Jewish that really stem from the idea that faith and queerness can't be compatible, that across the board people think of for really any faith. And I think the first stereotype is that people assume if you're a queer Jew, you're A, secular, or from a liberal denomination like Reform or Reconstructionist or Renewal Judaism, and then B, that you don't follow Jewish practices or laws. And that just isn't true. Queer Jews are in all denominations, and even many in liberal denominations still find meaning from Jewish law and practices. And similarly, there's a stereotype about Orthodox Jews where Orthodox Jews have to choose between their identity and their faith. And I'm not going to deny that there are Orthodox communities that have issues with queerness. For example, my Jewish community growing up was very traditional and was not affirming of LGBTQ people. I was told that homosexuality was a sin, and that was really harmful. But like with everything in life, there's a spectrum, and making blanket statements and generalizations erase the many queer Orthodox Jews who very much do exist, and that there are communities who affirm them. And if folks watching are interested in learning more about this, I really suggest checking out ESHEL, ESHEL, which is an organization for queer Orthodox Jews, and Rabbi Mike Moskowitz, who's an ultra-Orthodox rabbi with a trans child who's an advocate for trans equality. So there are people who are here, they're visible, they're doing the work, but there still is a lot more work that needs to be done. And I think a big part of that is that I don't think that we fully reached equality and affirmation after, like, things have definitely gotten better, but so like Hebrew is a gendered language, so that can be really hard for trans and non-binary folks. When you learn about rituals in Hebrew schools, are you still teaching them in a cisgender and heteronormative way? Do you have alternatives for life cycle rituals like getting married and having a bar bat mitzvah, or gender neutral term could be a b'nai mitzvah? I think that we've come so far, but I still want to make sure that we keep going to really challenging ourselves and listening to the LGBTQ folks about their experiences and what more it is that they need.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you sort of looked at that, because I think a lot of people's heads really do go to those stereotypes. And by the way, I was actually at a Transgender Day of Remembrance event, and Rabbi Moskowitz did the blessing, and he was amazing. And I only learned his story after the fact. What an incredible leader. So I want to talk a little bit, because we are at the holidays. It's Hanukkah now. I mean, there's a lot of holidays that throughout the year. Has the way that your families observed or celebrated the holidays changed at all since either, Rahel, in your case, you've come out, or Rabbi, in the case that your daughter came out? Has the way you've celebrated changed at all? Have you changed up any of the practices to make them different or maybe more inclusive? And do either of you have recommendations for other families looking for ways maybe to sort of change up the celebrations a little bit more so everybody feels included. Because Rahel, you were just bringing up, even language is gendered, and that can be very uncomfortable for some people. So how do holidays look for you both now? And has stuff changed, or do you have recommendations on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that with navigating things, especially like the language, like I mentioned, of like Hebrew being like Spanish, where like it can be so hard to do so many rituals that, especially Judaism is so about community and about family. So doing things can be really challenging when you have an LGBTQ person in your life of how to navigate them. So I'm a really huge fan of queer ritual innovation. And I've actually led a few workshops on this. It's something I'm really passionate about. So this is either really creating your own ritual or modifying an existing one to be more inclusive or affirming of certain identities. So for example, there's this tradition called the mikvah that it's kind of what a baptism is based off of. You like immerse yourself 3 times in a body of water, and it's supposed to mean ritually purifying yourself and entering a new stage of life. And you do it from when you have a Jewish marriage to when you convert to people assigned to female birth do it for menstrual cycles. There's many different reasons. And there's actually a lot of queer folk who go to the mikvah when they're coming out or having gender affirmation surgery, or I went when symbolizing coming out and healing from trauma at a queer affirming mikvah that was gender neutral, Mayim Hayim in Boston, if anyone wants to check it out. It was really an incredible experience. And then I tried my hand at making my own queer ritual. Judaism has this blessing called the blessing for the children, where parents bless their children on Friday nights for the Sabbath. And it uses gendered language. And there's one blessing for a son and one for a daughter. And it's really honoring like biological families, which isn't very inclusive. So I created a queer version of the blessing, a gender neutral version of the traditional blessing, and a new blessing honoring chosen families, and then a third blessing for queer youth. And that was something that was pretty easy to do, and I loved it. I've used it in many different communities. I've shared it with many other folks. So I think that there's ways that you can either take an existing ritual or holiday that you've been doing or really create your own. And like for looking, like I said before, like at a b'nai mitzvah or a wedding, of how to get that to be more affirming, I really recommend checking out Ritual Well for these. It's a website where people can create their own rituals, and there's different tags. Like you can look at like a trans tag or a certain holiday tag and find how to do like a queer wedding ceremony or something like that. And also Keshet is this great organization for LGBTQ equality in Jewish life. Have to mention Keshet on this. I did used to work there. Great organization. They have lots of resources and programs, and they also provide trainings on this as well. And I know lots of their things are like, how do I have a gender neutral bar mitzvah? Here's a guide to do that sort of thing.
Keshet rocks. Like they do such good work. Like we do a lot of stuff with them. I also have to appreciate that you're just like, so I just created my own. Anyone can do this. You made it seem so very simple. I'm in such awe sitting here. Rabbi, talk to me. Have traditions changed for you, or have you seen people updating some of their traditions or adapting them to sort of accommodate their changing families?
What I'm seeing, let me talk personally first. My daughter came out in 1990 as a lesbian. She is now married to a transgender man. They've been married twice. They were married the first time in a same-sex ceremony, and then a second time before the Supreme Court decision in a opposite sex ceremony with a license from the state, because after Julian transitioned, the state said, okay, you're a man, you can get married. Same two people who couldn't get married as a lesbian couple could get married in the state of Minnesota because their identity had changed. I think that what all of us struggle with a little bit are pronouns, and that's where the problem comes into being. I know I did. We finally got to the point where we had a pronoun jar, and every time we made a mistake, we put a quarter in, and then we put 50 cents in, and then we put $1 in. And when we got to $5, I really got good at the pronoun for Julian. So pronouns are a struggle, and I think that's the most difficult aspect. We're not going to change Hebrew. We can change the translation of Hebrew. We're not going to change Hebrew. Hebrew is a language that is set, as Rakhel has said, it's set in masculine and feminine terms. So, even in our
Rabbi, I do want to make people aware that there is a non-binary Hebrew project, and there are some really rad trans folks who are like in the blessing that I created. I did use a modification of Hebrew with gender neutral language that was based off of a Jewish sleepaway camp that wanted to be more inclusive of non-binary and gender non-conforming folks. So what they did that was really cool was the word kol in Hebrew means all. So They changed the endings to have like all in them, so that it was like all people instead of ending with like at for female or ata for man or like that sort of thing. Instead, you would say atol. So there are great, I don't think realistically that obviously I don't think the whole Jewish world is going to adapt these things, but I think that within your own community, there's some really cool innovation that's being done.
Yeah, I think that, we made great strides when our latest prayer book came out, Mishkan Tefillah, and using non-gender specific language within the prayers. It's not consistent, but it's there. One of the great challenges was what we were going to do with the word Lord. And there have been a number of possibilities. Our prayer book, I think perhaps mistakenly, has substituted the word Adonai, which is in the blessings. Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, normally translated Lord in the past. Now they're saying, blessed are you, Adonai. Well, the problem with that is Adonai means Lord. And as long as we have people who are ignorant of Hebrew, it works. But I think there are other translations that would have been possible, but I wasn't involved in it, and it's better than it was. So we're making strides toward that. I don't think when that prayer book came out, it was dealing with the non-binary community. And I'm not sure it reflects the non-binary community very well. And for that, we'll have to wait until the CCAR, the Central Conference of American Rabbi, needs more money again, and they come out with a new prayer book that they can sell. But in any case, I hear what you're saying, Rakhel, and yeah, I think that might work. I've not tried it, but thank you for this suggestion.
So one of the things that I think is making me really happy about this conversation is that there is so much progress happening. There's a lot of good stuff happening. I mean, just in this conversation, in what we have shared, just the three of us, I think we've all had sort of these moments of, oh, look at that and look at that. So are there any particular places where you are seeing a lot of momentum coming out of in the communities that you occupy? Because you're both in different places, different spaces, different kinds of communities. Do you feel that this is very youth driven, as we're seeing in some communities? Is it something that you're seeing sort of universally across congregations taking hold? Is there any sort of specific momentum coming out of any particular area? Because we know, and I can speak in Christianity, we've seen a lot of denominations where young people actually did drive the change because they were really frustrated by by some of the exclusionary stuff that was happening. Are you seeing this pop up in any particular areas, or is it that it just seems to be taking hold universally?
That's an excellent question. I've never thought of it that way.
I didn't give it to you in advance either.
Right. I don't know that it's youth driven within the Jewish communities in which I'm involved. I think that it is being driven as congregations more and more bring into teaching roles or rabbinic roles LGBTQ plus people, and find that in fact they're accepted, that it's not an oddity, that it's okay that an LGBTQ person can be a rabbi or a teacher in the communities, and that softens, I think, whatever resistance might still be there. And there is some. There's still homophobia in all the movements of Judaism. It certainly exists. It's just not popular anymore, and I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah.
Oh, what a good question. Okay, I'm glad that the rabbi talked first and gave me some time to think.
Yeah,
So I actually, so the synagogue that Rabbi Mike Moskowitz, who we mentioned before, he works at Congregation Beit Simchat Torah, which is an LGBTQ synagogue in New York City. And I actually had the honor to do my senior thesis on them, and spent some time studying them my senior year in college and visiting their congregation. And what I really found is that a big thing is we're not special. Like, that sounds bad, but we're very special. We're special people. But I think the issues that exist in society about LGBTQ issues are going to exist in the Jewish communities as well. So a lot of the same things that I saw about like struggles with as the LGBT community has expanded to not just be about like cis white gay people, and as we've challenged to learn more about trans and non-binary folks and people of color and being more inclusive and thinking about intersectionality, I think the Jewish community is having those growing edges as well when thinking about inclusion, that many things are going beyond, okay, we figured out how to do a same-sex wedding ceremony. How are we now going to grapple this non-binary ritual thing and Hebrew thing? Let's work on that. How do we think about like trans folks of color in our community? I don't know if that was really answering your question, but that was what I was thinking of with, I think that what I saw that sometimes there was a bit of a divide between more marginalized folks really putting pressure on the institutions to keep growing and changing, because sometimes people think that they've reached the pinnacle of, like, not calling out any particular community, but I think it's really easy to say like, oh, well, you can be gay here, so we've reached equality. And there's actually so much more to do to that.
No, and I think that's really interesting, because I think looking at it and recognizing sometimes it's not always the who, it's the what is driving people. And it seems like in some cases that's it. And I think you're right. I mean, it's not that the people who are Jewish are separate from society and they're looking at issues differently. It's looking at the same issues, but looking at it with a different lens. So I think it's interesting to look at how that change actually happens and how it takes hold. So I'm going to ask one more question because I have a little bit of time, and this is hopefully not a difficult one. How are you celebrating your Hanukkahs as we are all separated, and how has it been going so far?
Wendy and her husband, Julian, joined us a couple nights in lighting candles on Zoom. So that's how it's changed. Luckily, my son and my grandchildren live close by, and they've been able to come over.
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm with my partner right now, and I feel like, funnily enough, this is the first year in a long time where I've consistently lit the candles every night, because usually I'll light them like the first or second night, kind of forget about it, the third and fourth, then do it the eighth night, because then it's really pretty because you have all the candles and you need to take a photo of that. But this year, I think because of the isolation from COVID and wanting to have that thing to look forward to and having that connection, I almost said religiously, but like legitimately religiously, has been like, oh, we have to like do this. This is the highlight of the night. It's beautiful. It's only takes a couple moments, and it's that moment of connection and happiness and an excuse to get donuts because we eat fried food.
I genuinely appreciate any excuse to get donuts, and you may have just made a case for conversion on my part. I'm just going to say it.
We eat chocolate and donuts, and most holidays you have to drink alcohol.
Wow. I think I've probably been worshiping in the wrong place. I think I just had a big life change at this very last episode of the year. Rahel, Rabbi, thank you so much for being with me today and to do this show. I really wanted to make sure that we had this conversation, and we are so lucky to be able to just reach into our PFLAG family and ask people to help with the conversation. You are both amazing and change makers, and I'm so excited that you were able to do this, and I'm so grateful for both of you for doing today's show. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, and happy Hanukkah, Rabbi, and anyone watching who celebrates.
Happy Hanukkah to you.
And I am going to wrap up for the year. So this is our last show of 2020. For those of you who have been with us since the beginning, you know this didn't exist before this year started, and we kind of made it up as we were going along, but we've had a lot of fun. And I just wanted to thank everybody who has been joining us every single week to watch. And telling friends about it and making this conversation so interesting. I read the chat while we're going along, and it's so fun to see everybody weighing in. So thank you for making Something to Talk About a really fun show and something to look forward to on Thursdays for all of us. So we are taking the next 2 weeks off. Everybody needs a good nap at PFLAG, and we think you deserve one too. So for the next 2 Thursdays, if you miss us, you can go to YouTube and binge watch past episodes that maybe you missed. Don't miss the Halloween one. It's something to talk about. But until then, I want to thank you for being here. As we always end the same way, please run fast, laugh hard, and be kind. And please continue to wear your masks. We will see you in 2021. Have a great holiday, everybody.